It's about building authentic relationships and asking others for help, but it's also being of help to others. And all of us will be in the workplace for 30, perhaps 40 years or more. And we're going to find ourselves, even as we change careers a number of times, or perhaps move, running across a lot of the same people again and again and again. And that's a strength. Lean into that and recognize that while someone might not be of importance to you today, you never know. And the other thing you have to remember is when you do help other people, do it without any expectation of getting anything back in return. And if you were to keep count, and you shouldn't, you would find that you get so much more back in return when you do.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Trevor. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Super excited. My first question I really want to dive into, because I've been pretty fascinated actually, is how you started Max List from really a simple email that you sent to some friends. Can you tell me the backstory of how this turned into a full service platform and what you're doing with it now?
Well, my career has been in communications. I've worked in politics, government, and nonprofits, and ran a successful public relations agency for 15 years, which I closed last year. And I'm far along in my career, Trevor. But early in my career and in mid-career too, I had long periods of unemployment. I cashed the last unemployment check once after 30 weeks, and then I came within a week of doing it again a second time. Those experiences taught me a number of lessons. One was the importance of learning job search skills, but probably the most important one was the value of networking, of connecting with others and being of service to others. And when you're in service to others, you're finding ways to be helpful to your colleagues, friends, and family without expecting to get anything in return. And my way of doing that, Trevor, was to share job postings. And I did it informally for more than a decade before I finally turned it into a business, because I found myself paying a member of my public relations team at the company I ran to send out these postings. And then and so we turned Max List into an online job board, but it's much, much more than that, as your listeners will learn and as we talk more about it.
Absolutely. So I love that. So what would you say then your definition of networking is? What would Mac's definition of networking?
It's about building authentic relationships and asking others for help, but it's also being of help to others. And all of us will be in the workplace for 30, perhaps 40 years or more. And we're going to find ourselves, even as we change careers a number of times, or perhaps move, running across a lot of the same people again and again and again. And so that's a strength. Lean into that and recognize that while someone might not be of importance to you today, you never know. And the other thing you have to remember, and I know you know this well, Trevor, is when you do help other people, do it without any expectation of getting anything back in return. And if you were to keep count, and you shouldn't, you would find that you get so much more back in return when you do that.
That's a mic drop. So really, to sum that up in a soundbite, like networking is service. It's serving other people and with no expectation. And you know what? There's this law of reciprocity. Or, biblically, you can go, you reap what you sow, right? I mean, and if you sow good seeds, you're going to reap a good harvest, right? So just do good in the world, serve people, add value, and watch what happens. And you also said something else, which was ask, right? I see a lot of people, they're not asking. If you're giving, it's okay to ask. You've earned your ask. You've actually earned it, right? So like, as an example, I teach people, you want to get recommendations on LinkedIn, well, go give some and then go ask, right? Simply go give first, then ask. But I love that definition. I love what you said there. one of the other things I wanted to dive into today, one of the key ideas behind Max List is making the hiring process more human. And this is something I speak to a lot with my audience. I love that, especially in the day of AI and all this stuff we got going on now. Can you share an example or a story of a time when the hiring process became more personal for a job seeker or an employer through your platform?
A lot of examples come to mind, and I would challenge viewers and listeners to think about their own job searches, whether they were a candidate or serving on a hiring committee or perhaps a hiring manager. And when you reflect back on that, think about instances where you got referrals or you made referrals yourself. So maybe you've been charged with sorting through a stack of resumes or online applications, and someone sends you an email, or if you're working on site, comes down the hall and says, you should pull Trevor's resume. He's a good fellow. Now, that doesn't mean you, Trevor, are going to get the job, but your resume is going to get a serious review, and it's likely going to lead to a phone screener or even perhaps a formal interview. And I bring up that example because I think we all have a story like that in our own experience, either as a candidate or as a hiring manager, probably many stories. And it's an example of how hiring is human. And I think good hiring managers and good candidates understand how the best hiring works, and it's built on relationships. So you need job boards like the one I run in Portland, Oregon, which serves 2 states. If you're a candidate, to get leads, they're good research tools. They'll tell you about the local market, what jobs pay, what employers are looking for. But you don't rely on sending online applications alone. You need to tap into human relationships. And employers recognize that too. They'll advertise on my job. It helps them find candidates they might not have direct relationships or connections with, or their employees don't. But they don't rely on job postings alone to come up with a good candidate field. They ask their employees to send them referrals. And the smart ones reward employees. If somebody gets referred and they get hired, that employee who made the referral gets a bonus. And you don't want it to be an insider's game. You want to cast the net wide and far, but you want to be strategic about it. And human relationships are central to that, whether you're hiring or you're looking for a position yourself.
Yeah, I love that. So maybe for the audience listening, think about if a company is offering a referral bonus, right? Like I always teach my audience, hey, when you get back to work, don't forget where you came from and pay it forward, meaning go build a relationship with the decision makers inside of your company. And then come back to these job networking groups and start funneling people up to your new company that you're working at. Start getting people landed, start getting people some jobs, like hook them up, at least get their resume in front of the right people. And you know what? It can pay you to do that. If they have a referral program, why not? Why wouldn't you do that?
Smart employers, again, do have paid referral programs, but if the place you work doesn't, it's still in your interest as an employer or manager to cultivate those referrals, because in the end, hiring is about risk, whether you're a candidate or an employer. So how do hiring managers reduce risk? They rely on referrals to get candidates, because they know if someone is referred by an employee, even if it's the weakest of connections, the person who's making the referral has probably a better understanding of what that company's business is, what the culture is like, what the manager is like, and that's going to lead to vetted recommendations that when you're trying, again, to sort through, 50, 100 resumes, getting recommendations like that is gold. And if you're a candidate, when you are able to get referrals, you're able to actually move ahead to the front of the line, because how many people listening are frustrated when they see a position posted on LinkedIn and they see 275 people have applied. Well, how do you cut through that that noise, referrals and relationships, the human side of hiring, are one of the best ways to do that.
Absolutely. I agree with that 1000%. I mean, that's a big thing that we teach in my network is how to get humans involved, right? And I always talk about, hey, you know what? Go back and think about the companies that you worked for in the past. Look at the relationships that you had from the past, and it could be people you haven't talked to in a long time, right? I mean, like if you've been, 20 years ago, worked at a company, like go think about who are the people that you worked with. And again, you might not still be in contact with them, but are you connected on LinkedIn? Are you connected in any form or fashion? Can you reestablish a connection? I'll tell you a quick story. I had a guy that I worked with back when I was at Harley Davidson. I was 20 years old. Okay. Um, and I didn't even like him. Me and him, I'm gonna tell you, we butted heads. We're like, I did not like this guy, right? Like we were kids though, okay, when you think about it, right? We didn't like each other. Well, fast forward a few careers later, a few different companies later, I get into financial services, and so I'm doing that now. And I walked into a Chase bank, and he's a financial advisor at Chase. And I knew what he was capable of. I knew his skill set, and I just saw that, and I'm like, dude, you're like a caged lion here. Like you're a lion, but you're being fed. You're like a caged lion that's got his eyes glossed over. Like you need to be out in the wild, like stalking prey, and like you know what I mean. You need to be like I told him I was like I'm free, like in the role that I'm doing. Like I'm free. Like the world is my uh my playground, right? And so, anyways, I was just talking to him, and I was like, you also make a lot less here too because they're feeding you, because you're at a retail establishment. Anyways, long story short, he ended up coming over and then ended up being elevated within the company and stuff like that. So the point of the story, the moral of the story is like I didn't even like him, but it was a network from many years ago, 10 years ago or something like that, that I ended up helping him get a job, and he's done a lot since then. So think about those relationships, those connections that you've had from a long, long time ago. Can you reestablish those and, you know, really help to open some doors for you? And the answer is yes, really. So I love that.
It's a great story. And what I like about the story, Trevor, is it's an example of you, in this instance, you met the person by chance, but with LinkedIn and other online tools, you can thoughtfully and systematically go back and find those people, whether you're a candidate or you're an employer hiring. And our network is one of our most valuable assets, and it's there waiting to be tapped. I find employers and candidates struggle because they don't know how to do it. If they're doing a job search, for example, a candidate might not have a clear job search goal, or perhaps a short list of target companies where the person would like to work, or maybe they don't know what to ask for when reaching out to people they've identified on their network. And the good news is these are all solvable problems. These are job search skills that anybody can learn. It just takes some thought and investment in time. But the people I see at Max List who have the most successful job searches and the most rewarding careers, they spend time answering those questions before they send out their first application. And the employers who post with us, they're clear about what they want before they put a posting up on a site like mine or a big national board like LinkedIn. And they don't rely just on job postings. They tap into their employee network, to professional network. They reach out to leaders of professional associations. So both parties, if they're doing it well, are going to find each other because they're clear about what they want, and they know where the people who offer the opportunities or are looking for those jobs hang out, and they're going to connect sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's so important. They talk about your network is your net worth, right? You're only one conversation away, literally, from changing your life. And I'll give you a perfect example. Another quick story. I had a client of mine that we ended up doing a video resume for her, and we produced this video resume, and she was so hesitant. Okay, she didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do it, and I'm like, we need to do it. Well, the job search was taking a little bit long, and she got to a point where she's like, I'll do it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll do anything. I'll try anything. So we put this video resume together for her. She recorded it, and we edited it and published it, and boom. Next thing you know, literally, check this out, Mac. 24 hours later, she gets a job offer from a CEO that she worked with 10 years ago. And not only just that, like, that's a huge success story, right? She gets he's like, dude, where are you at? Like, then he hired her, right? But she also got 5 other interviews from other companies. I couldn't believe it, in 24 hours. Now, this is probably the best story that I have. I've done video resumes for folks for a long time, and that's probably one of the best success stories. But it's a perfect case of, like, your network. This was a CEO she worked for 10 years ago, had no idea she was searching, right? Until, boom, sees a little video and sparks a conversation, and 24 hours later, she's got a job offer. You know what I mean?
It's a great story and a good example of how when you reach out to your network in a thoughtful way, and I'm sure your video did this. She was clear about what she wanted, and I'm guessing you used online platforms to get it in front of people who were in her industry and knew about opportunities in the field that she wanted to work. That makes all the difference. What you want to avoid is sending out an email to, and I've done this too early in my career, so I get it. You want to let people know you're looking, but if you say, I'm doing a job search, and if you hear of anything, let me know, you make it hard for people to help you. You got to be specific about who you are, what you want, and what you offer. And a good video resume does that. Any good resume does.
What you just said. Say that again. Who you are,
what you offer, and where you want to go. And
call to action. Let's go.
Yeah.
Love it.
And then get that information out in a targeted way. And I'm guessing she probably shared her video resume on LinkedIn and other professional platforms. But you're going to get a much better response than if you just say, hey, I'm keeping my options open. Let me know if you hear of anything. You got to be thoughtful. You got to be strategic, and you got to tap into that network. That's how you make looking for work more human and hiring more.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so you've worked with a lot of job seekers over the years and employers. In your experience, what would you say the biggest mistake that job seekers make when looking for work? What do you think that is?
Well, I say this with humility because I made this mistake too.
Hey, you don't know until you know, right? So,
right. Yeah. It's waiting to be picked, Trevor. Waiting to be picked. It's sitting down on Monday. You're doing a job search. You check out the boards. You go to LinkedIn. You go, if you're in Portland, Oregon, to Max List. You probably have 3 or 4 other sites you look at. You make a list of positions that sound interesting that you could do, and you send out applications over the course of the next couple of days. You keep track of the number of applications you send out, and you wait for the employers to get back to you. Yeah, you wait for an email, maybe a text message. And here's the problem with that approach. All of your competitors are doing the same thing. And the other problem is that you're not tapping into how hiring works, you're not tapping into the human part of it, and about I would encourage listeners that, again, I know there are a lot of people who are mid-career or senior in their career who are listening and watching to this. Everybody's had an experience with a hiring that did not work. It's not good for the candidate. It's not good for the employer, because it usually takes about 3 months to figure out it's not going to work, maybe 6. Then you have to let the person go. Everyone is demoralized. Then you have to start again. And it's expensive, and nobody likes it. So understanding that, hiring managers, to manage risk, they rely on referrals. They rely on relationships. And again, that's not going to get you the job. But if you understand that that's how the importance of referrals in hiring, it changes how you look for work. You don't wait to be picked. Yes, you do go to job boards. You use them to find leads. You use them to research what employers care about, and to study job descriptions, understand what the position in your market might pay. You understand who might be hiring. But before you send out your application, then you go to LinkedIn, you go to your other social networks, you go to your university alumni database, and you see if you know anyone inside that organization. And if you don't, you see who you know who might know someone.
What did you say? Did you
Who
say
you know?
Who you know? What
Who
did
you
say?
know?
That's right. Let's go.
It's one of the keys to making hiring more human and job searches more human. So then you reach out to that person and you say, hey, I saw there's an opportunity. I'm thinking about applying. Tell me about that job. Tell me about the hiring manager. What are the problems that keep that hiring manager up at night? What's the culture like? What does that job pay if the position isn't listed? Some states require job salary listings, others don't. But you're not doing a thesis here or a PhD research project here. You've got 5 or 6 questions, and those questions help you in a number of ways. They help you figure out, do I want to work at this place? Maybe it's a snake pit. And then you don't spend the time sending off an application. But it can also lead to other conversations inside the organization that give you more insights. And then when you do send out an application, you can write a cover letter and tweak your resume to reflect the needs of that employer. And then you can ask the person you spoke with to let the hiring manager or the HR people know that you've applied. And believe me, when they send that text or that email, or if it's an on-site employer, they go down the hall and they say, Trevor's applied. He's a smart guy. I had a conversation with him. It's not going to get you the job, but it's going to get your application pulled out of the slush pile. And it's going to get you a serious review. And in most cases, it will lead to a phone screener, and that gives you a chance to sell yourself. Now, what I just outlined takes some time and effort. You got to have those conversations. You got to customize your application, and you got to focus on quality, Trevor, not quantity. So you're not going to send out 100 applications a month, or it's probably only a handful, but you're doing the research and the homework that allows you to decide if you want to be there. And aside from the job boards, you're not just looking at job boards when you don't wait to be picked. You're also going out and talking to people in targeted who are on your list of target employers, and this might be 20, 25 organizations, to figure out if you want to be inside those organizations. And you're developing relationships and making connections that are going to help you stand out from your competitors. So don't wait to be picked. That's the biggest mistake I see candidates make.
I love that. Okay, so let me frame this up. So don't wait for your phone to ring. Have a list of target companies, and before or even after you apply, make sure you get human conversations.
Yes.
With people that work inside that company. They could be in the hiring capacity, maybe they're not. It doesn't have to necessarily be a hiring manager, right?
Right.
It could be somebody who does what you want to do.
Right. It could be a peer. Yeah.
Yep. But talk to people who actually work there and do informational interviews to get insights about what it's like to work there. What's the culture like? What's the fit? Hey, what are the benefits like? I mean, how did, and not only that, but how did you get where you're at today, right?
Yes.
How did you arrive there, right? Like if they're doing what you want to do, how did you get there? Just gaining some insights about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, let me tell you a story. I worked in state government in Oregon at one time, and I was on the executive team of one of the larger state agencies. We had the person who ran the agency was the director. There were 6 or 7 of us on the executive team. I was the communications director. We were hiring a new IT director, Trevor, and in our weekly meeting with the director, she was talking about that hiring process, and she told a story about somebody because she'd gotten a phone call. There were 34 local offices around the state for this agency, and the director of one of the nearby offices called the director of the agency and said, "Hey, this fellow came in. He's thinking about applying for the IT director's job, and he wanted to find out how a local office worked, what mattered to the director of a local office, what kind of problems do they have, what kind of services did they want to get from the IT department of the agency as a whole." So I don't know how many people applied for that job, probably 3 or 4 dozen, but this fellow who did get the job eventually after going through a competitive process was the only one who reached out to a potential customer inside the agency and said, "Tell me about your problems. Tell me about your needs." And then we're all talking about this fellow before he even sends in his application.
That's good. No, that's really good. I mean, that's outside the box thinking. Seriously, and that's what
Well,
it takes,
forgive me for interrupting, Trevor. It is, but people do it all the time. The most successful candidates, the people who have the most rewarding careers, these are not deep, dark secrets I'm sharing with you. These are job search skills that are taught by coaches at university career services offices, at public employment offices. It takes time to learn them and practice them and get good at them. But it'll pay you far more dividends than relying just on online applications alone.
It takes effort, right? It takes it a little extra effort. Now, I want to add a little bit of strategy to the back end of this that can help these job seekers get more of these informational interviews, because sometimes it can be a little bit challenging if you're reaching out to a stranger to talk to them about, hey, can I pick your brain? What, right? Like that can be, now, we ain't nobody got time for that.
Forgive me for interrupting. Don't use that phrase, "pick my brain."
Exactly.
If you're asking for an informational interview, it's a business meeting.
Yeah.
You're in charge. You called it. You've got to set the agenda. There's a reason why you want to meet with this person. And if you don't know the reason, then before you ask for the meeting, figure that out. You don't want to pick somebody's brain. You want an introduction. You want an insight into the company. Maybe they have they made a career change and you want to do it. Whatever the reason is, that's what you want to ask for.
Well, I use that term because I get that all the time.
I do too.
Right?
I used to use that phrase too. So
yeah, I want to pick your brain. So I'm so glad that you said that. Don't use that term. Instead of saying, I want to pick your brain, how about this strategy? You could actually start your own podcast or show and say, "Hey, I'd love to feature you and your experience. I know you're working at XYZ company, and I'd love to feature you and your experience on my show." And you essentially take that informational interview into an interview like me and Mac are doing right now. And you have your questions formulated and you make it about them and you talk to them and you ask them these questions and you're like, wow, and you record it. And then now you actually have marketing, and your marketing features the company that you want to work for. And do you think you're going to create an advocate inside of that company? Heck yeah, because you just made them the star, right? You're going to you know what I'm talking about? So you have marketing, you have you're spotlighting the company, you're spotlighting that employee, and you're getting the insights you need to be successful in closing the deal inside of your interviews when you get, when they open the door for you. It's like, man, there's just so many benefits. You've been doing podcasting. Let's talk about podcasting for a second, because you've been doing podcasting for a long time, right? Find Your Dream Job. And it's been ranked as a top career show on Apple. What's one of the most memorable interviews that you've had, or Even one of the best strategies that you've learned from someone on your show. What do you think? What's the standout strategy that you learned on your show from someone?
Well, we celebrate. We started our 10th season this month, so it's a weekly
Congratulations.
career. Thank you.
That's amazing. You're
Yeah,
really doing it. You're an early adopter, you know.
I am. There are several other great shows out there. Mark Anthony Dyson, who hosts Voice of the Job Seekers, Pete Makaitis, How to Be Awesome in Your Job. There are two or three others who've been doing it longer, and we actually publish a annual guide to career podcasts at Max List, and I know you're in there. There's 100+ shows. If you go to topcareerpodcast.com, it'll take you to our website, and you can see the web article or download the PDF. So, to your question, I learned so much from every guest, and candidly, after 500+ interviews, there's some constant themes that come through. But I guess one episode that sticks in my mind, Trevor, once a month we talk to a reader of Max List who found a job they love. And there was a person who lived in Washington, D.C. She came to Portland. She was a trailing spouse. Her husband got a position at Nike. And she had worked on Capitol Hill for a U.S. senator. It was actually a very senior senator, Chuck Schumer. And so she was very well connected in Washington, D.C. She'd never been to Oregon. And she was mid-career communications director. And she arrived in January, and she spent the next 5 months learning about communications opportunities in the Oregon corporate world. And she met probably with 90 people, I think she told me in this interview. And in the end, she ended up working for the state's largest utility, Portland General Electric. And the job was advertised. She did apply online. But I asked her in this interview, well, how many jobs did you apply for altogether? And I think she said 3. So how did she spend that 6 months? Many people, when doing a job search, will spend 6 months sending out several hundred applications and not hear back. Maybe get 3 or 4 interviews, and then eventually 1 or 2 offers. She spent that 6 months, which I think she got an interview for each of the 3 jobs she applied for, and I think she might have gotten offers. So her numbers were comparable. But here's the difference, Trevor. She built a network. She didn't know anybody in Oregon when she arrived in January. At the end of 6 months, she knew all the key players in corporate communications in the state of Oregon. It's not a tiny group. It's probably several hundred players, and she didn't meet all of them, but she met a lot of the most important players. So when she's ready to leave that job, she knows who is hiring and who isn't, what the positions pay. She's got people she can reach out to. And that, to me, is invaluable and exemplifies what I've learned in these 500+ interviews about the importance of having a clear job search goal if you're a candidate, knowing where you want to work, and building relationships and leveraging existing connections so that you, again, don't wait to be picked. And while she was a candidate, all the same principles apply to hiring, because the best managers, they get clear about, again, what they want, the candidate skills and experiences, and they tap into their networks, both their employees and LinkedIn and their own university alumni databases. They don't rely just on job boards. Job boards are a great way of getting leads. We provide tremendous value to our clients. But if you're putting all your eggs in one basket, in the job board basket, whether you're an employer or a candidate, you're making your search for an employee or your search for a job harder and longer than it has to be.
So I love what you just said. So that's this lady, moves somewhere new, doesn't know anybody, and before she applies to anything, she's out there, moving and shaking hands, shaking hands, kissing babies, getting to know people,
Exactly.
like a politician out there, just,
And she worked
hey,
for one. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, right? And
Yeah.
she's out there, building relationships and doing all of that. And what I think is important, because some people may be hearing this and going, that's just not me. I can't, like, maybe I'm introverted. I can't get out there. And, or like, because here's what I want you to know is you can actually do the same strategy online. It doesn't necessarily have to be this in-person, going to networking meetings, shaking hands, and like literally meeting people and doing it that way, face to face. It can be done online. Because imagine this. Imagine you went to a networking group, and let's just say there was 100 people there in person, 100, and you were able to get on stage, get the microphone, get everyone's attention. They're looking at you, and you're able to clearly communicate what you're looking for, the problem you solve, and a clear call to action on what to do next, what you're looking for, right? Somebody in that room is going to be able to help you. Somebody in that room is going to be able to connect you to, maybe the decision makers in that room. You don't know. But I guarantee you, out of 100 people, somebody's going to connect the dots somewhere, right? Now, imagine that same scenario. I just create a simple little video and let's just say I get 1,000 views, 10,000 views. Who knows how many views you could get on this video, right? It's the same concept, except it's like it has scalability. You can post that video where you have the microphone, you have the attention, right? Same thing. You can post that video to not only LinkedIn. LinkedIn is just one platform. What if we make a vertical video and we post it to LinkedIn, we post it to Reels, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok? All the social media platforms now are prioritizing vertical video. So you could make one simple video and it go to all the channels, maximizing those eyeballs and that attention that, like I said, if you go to a in-person networking meeting and you get 100 eyeballs looking at you, well, what if you get thousands to hear your message, right? What other tips do you think, what would you say to someone who's introverted, right? Because that even could, what I just said could be, for an introvert, could be a video. Like I told that story to about Deidre. She was a client of ours. She put her video resume out. And in the beginning, she was like, I don't want to do this. What would you say to somebody who's introverted, uncomfortable with networking, to get them out of their own way?
Well, I would say that's normal. Introversion is just a way of how you get energy. There's success. There are many successful people who are introverts, and you once you understand your personality style, you just have to adjust your strategy to reflect it. I would also say whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, and going back to that image that you shared of someone standing up on a stage in a room with 100 people, as before you speak, you've done preparation. So, yeah. So, if you, before you get up on a stage or you're going to an important business meeting, you're going to speak, you practice. You write out your remarks, you create an outline, you get it down to talking points, you deliver it 5 or 6 times because it's an important presentation. When you're looking for work, it's the same. And again, if you can answer those 3 questions, we keep coming back to, Trevor, what is the job I want? Where are the employers where I'd like to work? What is it that I offer? And the bonus round is, do I understand the employer's needs, and so that I can show how I can solve those problems? If you can hit those 4 points, whether you're standing on a stage or creating a video, or you're going on to platforms like LinkedIn and you're engaging through comments, sharing articles that show and demonstrate that you are somebody who knows about this topic and works in this field, you'll get the attention of the people you hope will hire you or that you are interested in working for. To do it well, you can't just, and I know you know this, you just can't put a video on your YouTube channel. You've got to know who you want to talk to, and you've got to build connections online with those people. So let's go back to LinkedIn. If you have a list of target employers, you want to begin building connections with people in the 20 or 25 companies you hope to work for, and get introductions and connect with them on LinkedIn. And when you make that connection on LinkedIn and you post regularly, those people will see your stuff. And you don't have to be you don't have to do this a couple hours a day. If you have a strategy and a goal, this could be, an hour or two a week. And so it just has to be thoughtful and strategic. And it doesn't have to be only online. If you're introverted and you are uncomfortable, you're probably not going to go to the monthly meeting of the local chapter of your professional association and walk around the room and introduce yourself to random strangers. But you probably would be comfortable working at the check-in desk. Every local chapter I know is looking for volunteers, and that's a great way to meet people. Maybe you like taking photos, so you could volunteer to do the pictures for the monthly chapter meeting or the annual dinner or the educational workshop. Again, that's a great way to meet people, particularly the people in charge of those chapters, because they are usually leaders in your industry, in your community, and they are exactly the kind of people that you want to connect with. But you have to do it strategically. I mean, you could go to the local airport and throw out your resume, but those aren't the people who are going to hire you. The universe of people who are going to hire you is limited. It can be challenging to figure out who they are, but once you do that hard strategic work, then your search becomes much more thoughtful and strategic and shorter and easier.
I love what you said there. Volunteering is massive, but I want to go
It
back
is, yeah.
actually. I want to go back real quick to what you were talking about with the content. And you said that it doesn't have to, take a lot of your time,
Right.
maybe an hour a week or something
Yeah.
like that. And to really paint this picture, right? For people that are online and they're watching and they're tuning in, right? Think about what we just did. We came through the pandemic, right? And when we came through the pandemic, everybody went virtual, right? Everything is Zoom. Everything is communication like this. We're having meetings, right? So you should be fairly comfortable. Like, let's just put it this way for the audience listening. Could you get on a Zoom conversation? Could you get on a Zoom call? I think the answer is yes. If you could get on a Zoom call, right? I think the world had to do that after pandemic, right? So if you could do that, you can do what me and Mac are doing right now, which is having a long form conversation on video. I use this tool called Riverside, right? And listen, I'm not saying you have to go start a podcast and distribute it on Apple and Spotify and all of that. No. Simply use this tool to create a long form video, okay, conversation. It could be like this, where you're giving a conversation, or maybe you're giving a presentation or talking about a subject that you know very, very well. And it could be a solo episode where you're talking about something you know very well. But either way that you do it, you have a long form video that maybe you do once a week. You do 1 hour, all right, once a week. And this tool has AI built in now where it will literally create these magic clips for you. It's going to clip out the most viral moments, and you get like 15 of them, like so yeah, 1 hour a week. Now you have your whole content strategy that's focused on, what you do, the problem you solve, the companies you're looking for. Maybe you create a Q&A series that's about like the most frequently asked questions employers ask job seekers. Well, wouldn't that be, kind of helpful for those employers to see that and find that online? And it also gives the employer an understanding of who you are as a human. Remember we said this is a human experience. When they interview you, they're trying to get to know the person behind the resume, the human being, right? And so give it to them online before it actually helps to expedite the whole job search process, because they see you, they get to know you, they feel you. Like right now, if anybody's watching this, you got Mac, they're getting to know who Mac is, right? From a video. It's so much easier. Anyways, I love what you're saying, because you're like, it doesn't take a lot of time. And it really doesn't. If you have a strategy and you're thoughtful, like you said, be strategic and be thoughtful.
And there's so many different ways of engaging with others online. And there are people I know who will get excited about the idea of doing a weekly video, but others might think, well, I don't have the skills or the time to do that. But if you have if you focus on LinkedIn and maybe one or two other online channels, you should choose the channels where the people you want to hire you hang out, and you provide content on a regular basis. It could be just once a week, or you comment, you take 15, 20 minutes a day to comment on people who are posting on LinkedIn or other channels, but they are people you want to build connections with. So it's not going to be somebody in New York you may never meet, unless you want to work in New York for that person. Think again about where you want to go, the job you want, and the connections and relationships you want to build. It makes a big difference. And again, to your point about volunteering, one of the great things about volunteering professionally, particularly if you get involved in the local organization in your field, you can do a project. It's not a life sentence. You can say, okay, I'll put together the April lunch, or I'll help out at the annual dinner, and it's you've got
Doesn't have to be a
guardrails.
life sentence. I love
Yeah,
that you said that. That's good.
we all have busy lives,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
obligations to our partners and children and our community, and
Yep.
but if you can spend a few hours volunteering with your local professional association, you'll meet the movers and shakers in your field. They'll
So
see what
good.
you can do, and they will think of you
Mm.
when opportunities arrive, if you tell them you're looking and
Yeah.
what you're looking for.
Yes.
You got to be
That's
specific.
huge.
Yeah.
So two things I want to point out on that. Number one is I see a lot here in Dallas. We have so many
Okay.
networking groups here, a lot of networking groups. And
Great.
we have job networking groups, which are phenomenal. However, I always tell them, hey, don't just go to the job networking groups.
Right.
It's a bunch of job seekers, right? Like everybody's in the same shoes, which is great because they can relate to you. They can help you. There's so much value there.
Those are wonderful organizations. Yeah.
They are. However, we also need to go where people are employed, where decision makers are. Like you said,
Yes.
associations. Like if you're in HR, why wouldn't you join the HR association and go to those meetings, right? Like, so to your point, the associations are great. Go do some networking there. The other thing is when you're volunteering, you're building a bond around commonality, right? Like you're doing something that you're both passionate about. You're giving in a way. You're giving of your time and serving in a way around something that you're both passionate about. And so it expedites relationship building when you're volunteering. I mean, it really does.
And it's also good for your mental health, because when you're
So
out of
good.
work, and
So
I've
good.
been there, it's discouraging.
So
And
good. Yeah.
when you volunteer, you have the opportunity to do things you enjoy doing, and that's going to bring you energy, and people are going to see you at your best because you're doing stuff you're knowledgeable about and that you like to do, and it's going to get you out of your head. And again, as somebody who was out of work for too long periods, and I hear this when I'm talking to candidates too, it's easy to get trapped in your head, and volunteering gets you out of that. So, along with all the other benefits that you outlined, Trevor.
That's beautiful. Mental health when you're in the job search. Oh my gosh, right? Like it would have beat down these job
You get a lot of
seekers go through.
rejection. It's it's like sales, and some of us are good at sales, but even the best salespeople, they need a timeout from all the rejection. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, it hurts. It stings.
Yeah.
And then you're watching your bank account go backwards,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And you're
I
like, "Oh my
know.
god, oh my god, oh my
It's a
god,
lot
I'm
of
running out of
pressure.
money." It is. It's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure, and your wife's looking at you like, "You better get your butt back to work."
Yeah.
Like all
I
kinds of
know.
stuff, right? Pressure. You're absolutely right. A
Yeah.
lot of pressure happens from that.
Yeah.
Um,
And sometimes you have to take a paycheck job. Maybe your unemployment is coming to an end. So you sign up to work as an office temp or in a service job. And that's there. I think that's okay. There's a dignity that comes from work and paying your bills. But and so if you find yourself in that situation, and personally, I certainly did a couple times, uh, embrace it, but don't give up on your search, and set aside time to, again, in a thoughtful, strategic way, look for the job that you really want.
I love that. So be willing to take that gap job,
Yeah,
okay? That
yeah,
that gap job to just get some income flowing in, and don't be too prideful not to take
yeah,
that gap job, right? Because
yeah,
they say the pride comes before the what?
yeah,
The fall. Okay.
yeah, exactly.
If you're too prideful to say, "Oh, that's beneath me. That's beneath
Yeah,
me." Well,
that's a
okay.
trap I fell into, and I know this isn't about me, but I would just encourage job seekers: don't let your pride get in the way. It's okay. You will be better for volunteering. You might think you should get paid, but really, you're getting more than you're giving, because it's getting a chance to show others what you can do. You're getting to do what you enjoy doing, and you're showing. Yeah, and then if you have to take a temporary job or a contract position, or an interim position, it's better to work, and put it in the context of a longer job search than to sit at home, again, trapped in your own head.
I agree with that 100%. And also think about when you're volunteering too. Think about volunteering for something that is bigger than you. Okay, like I'll give you an example. So here we do this every year. This thing called Feed My Starving Children. Okay, and you go and it's an hour. It's just 1 hour. You go to this place and you pack food. You pack these little pouches with rice and all this kind of stuff, and you're just packing. It is like an assembly line. And we're just packing. And then at the end of it, they're like, "You fed 500,000 kids for a year," or whatever, some crazy number. You're like, "Whoa." And you're like, the impact you can have when people come together with a common goal and a common purpose, and you're just like, wow, and it's bigger than you, right? It's bigger than you. And so what it is, it's a very humbling experience where you're like, wow, you know what? Yeah, what I got going on is we all have our things going on, but you know what? It's bigger than me. There's other things going on in the world bigger than you, right? So it takes the focus off of you and it puts it somewhere else, and that helps you feel good. So anyway,
That
that's
could
so
be a
good.
welcome break during a long job search.
Absolutely. Go out there. And again, what I said is when you do that type of volunteering, again, you're building a common bond with someone around a
Mm-hmm.
commonality. And, let's just say there was another person at that, event. Like you just did something together. They saw you in that moment. You saw them in that moment. You had a conversation in that moment, and it can lead to some amazing things because you're building a relationship around a common bond.
Yeah.
So I love that.
And to your point, Trevor, you never know who you might meet and what they might do. So it underscores the importance, when you're a candidate, of knowing what you want and where you want to go. Because if you meet somebody and you say, well, I'm doing a job search, and if you hear of anything, let me know, that's probably the person is going to remember the conversation. But if you say, I'm doing a job search and I'm looking for a senior position in bookkeeping with a mid-sized company here in the Portland metro area, do you know of anybody I should talk to, or have you heard of any opportunities? That's a really specific ask. And 9 times out of 10, somebody will say, no, I don't, but they will remember that conversation, and they may hear of something. But 1 time out of 10, they'll say, yeah, have you thought about talking to the people over at SO Electric? I hear they just got a new government contract. They might be hiring somebody. The person I know there isn't in bookkeeping. They're they're in the manufacturing arm, but why don't you call her? I'll give you her name, and maybe she will know something.
It's so good being specific about your ask, because it's just like in my business in financial services, right? Like well, in business in general, they talk about creating your ideal client avatar, right? What does that person look like? And be as specific as possible, right? What does your ideal client avatar look like? Well, same thing for the job seekers. You need to be super specific about what's that ideal company and that ideal role look like for you. And, when you go out there, if you're just so general and you're like, I'm looking for a job, okay, you're not really going to get, people aren't going to be able to help you as well as if you are very specific about what you're looking for. It actually helps them narrow down people that they know, right? Because if I just said, hey, Mac, who do you know that could help me get a job? Right?
Yeah, it's a very general question.
It's super general. But if I'm like, hey, I'm really interested in an HR role over at Toyota. They have a position I saw online that fits exactly what I'm looking for. Do you know anybody that works at Toyota?
Yeah, that's
Right?
really specific.
Very specific. You're going, do I know anybody that works at Toyota?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
maybe
and
in the auto industry, right? Like you could,
right.
like Toyota's is very, very specific. But if you were, let's say, in the auto industry, or Toyota is actually one of my dream companies.
Yeah.
So you kind of open it up a little bit, right?
Yeah. Here in Portland, Nike has its corporate headquarters. So many people I meet dream of working at Nike. It can be, right now they're laying people off. The numbers haven't been good. So there's not a lot of hiring going on there. But there's a whole ecosystem of sports clothing companies here in Portland. And so there are there remain opportunities at these small and mid-sized firms. And those can be stepping stones to a position at Nike. Or if you don't want to work at Nike rather, and you want to be in sports clothing, there are lots of opportunities to do that. And you've got to understand that market. And I don't know what the auto business is like in Dallas. I am assuming there are other employers besides Toyota, because once you have a big player, it tends to create a whole ecosystem in the industry. And so you need to not only know what you want, you got to build a map of those organizations and start understanding what opportunities they offer. And that's true whether you're somebody looking for a job, or again, if you're an employer, you got to be clear about the candidate you want. If you're just dusting off the job posting from 7 years ago and not changing it, you're doing yourself a disservice. You've got to have that avatar, as you described it, that ideal candidate.
Yes, love that. Love that. Mac, you've seen the job market evolve over the years because you've been doing this for a little while, right? So what do you think that the future holds for job seekers and employers in the next 5-10 years when we're talking about AI and technology and all this kind of stuff? What do you think the future is going to hold for this job search game?
Well, I hear a lot of concerns about job loss because of automation and AI. We've been here before. You can find articles and books warning that the economy is going to change permanently forever because of automation, going back to the early 19th century. And then in those days it was, wool and cloth was made by hand, and then factories were created that automated the process and simplified it, and jobs were lost, but new jobs were created. And we see that cycle happen again and again and again. So the people who thrive and succeed as change happens are the ones who know what they want and invest in their skills, and they're lifelong learners. And I think everybody is a lifelong learner, and everybody can thrive. Some people have more resources and advantages than others. But I think if you do the work to figure out what you want, and you understand what the local economy offers, and you take advantage of resources that are available to you, you can thrive. But you gotta be clear about your goal, where you want to work, and what you offer. And I know I keep coming back to this again and again, but those are constants that I see in people who have successful careers and successful job searches. And with employers, it's again the same. If they invest the time to get clear about the kinds of skills and experiences they're looking for, and they get good at hiring, they're going to have their organizations and companies are going to be much more successful.
I like what you said about lifelong learning, right? And that's like being adaptable, right? Being able to move with the times, because listen, we are constant. Change is the one constant. Okay, in right now we're in a day and age where change is rapid. You've got to get comfortable with change, like rapid change all the time. Boom, 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 boom. It is uncomfortable. So get comfortable being uncomfortable with change, because it's just going to continue and it's not going to slow down. It's going to get faster and faster and faster. That's what we're seeing right now, this AI stuff, right? It's getting faster and faster. I mean, they just released or saw that release Elon Musk did with Optimus, the robots, right? And I mean, he's trying to put a robot, a human-like robot in every home, right? That's going to be like your home taker. It's going to cook your food. It's going to do your laundry. It's going to mow your lawn. It's going to do all this. I mean, how many jobs, right, are going to change, not be lost, I think are going to change. Again, if you're adaptable, and that's one thing humans are adaptable. We got to move with the times. And
It's going to keep coming. Yeah. But again, I'm so old. I was in the workplace in the 80s, and I remember when we had switchboard operators and typing pools and administrative assistants who handled schedules. And I know I'm dating myself by saying all these things, but all those jobs have been automated, and we find ourselves doing them ourselves because we have tools that make that make it easy to do so and require only a fraction of the time that you needed, 40 years ago to schedule an appointment or type up a document. And the unemployment rate it's not, it's still at historic lows nationally and in most states. So people adapted. Sometimes that change wasn't easy, and sometimes it was really painful for individual communities as entire industries shifted and disappeared. A lot of manufacturing jobs, steel jobs, and automobile jobs, they don't exist anymore. And some people didn't adapt. And so we need to find ways to help people adapt. And then as individuals, we need to recognize that that's going to happen to us.
absolutely, I agree 100%. To wrap things up, what would you say is, if you had to give one actionable step, okay, just one, because we talked about a whole bunch of stuff today, but if you had to give one actionable step that you would recommend a job seeker to make the hiring process more human and more fulfilling, what would that one step be?
When you talk to people in your family, friends, your professional networks, on your block, tell them exactly what you want and where you want to go. And if you do that, people will start telling you about their colleagues and contacts and friends and family members who can help you. And if you're specific about what you want help with, you're going to tap into the power of your personal and professional networks, and you're going to leverage relationships that are going to make your job search easier and shorter and your career more satisfying.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Mac, thank you so much for coming and being part of the Who You Know show. We really appreciate you. Is there any specific platform that you would love for job seekers to connect with you on? Is it just your website you want to connect, or LinkedIn, or what's the best place for the audience to connect with you?
Two places. Trevor, please connect with me on LinkedIn. And when you do reach out, please mention you heard me on Trevor's show. And second, I do host a weekly career advice podcast, Find Your Dream Job. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts, or visit the MaxList website, maxlist.org/podcast. The jobs you'll find on our site are in Oregon and Washington. Some of them are remote, so they'll be of interest to listeners everywhere. We have invested a lot of time in providing free content about how to hire smarter and how to look for work in an easier and faster way. And all that content is free, Trevor. So I encourage your listeners and viewers to not only check out our podcast, but visit our website as well.
I love it. I love it. I love it. One of my favorite things, free 99. Okay. Free 99. I love it. So that's amazing. Mac, thank you so much for being with us today. Guys, that's the show. It's all about who you know. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Who You Know Show podcast. My name is Trevor Houston, and if you've enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing wherever you listen and leave us a positive review to help us keep the mics on in the studio. Until next week, that's the show. It's all about who you know.